Okay, so you know how much we all crave that feeling of trust, right? Like it's huge EE.
Hmm.
And rebuilding it when things have gone wrong, that's a whole other level. But whether you're dealing with this personally or you're just, fascinated by this whole psychology thing, I think understanding how to rebuild trust is like solid goal.
Yeah, it really is the bedrock of any strong relationship, isn't it? That sense of security, that feeling of knowing you can rely on someone.
100%. And to help us unpack all of this, we're turning to this Lifelines Talks episode I came across.
Hmm.
They lay out this super structured approach to rebuilding trust, which honestly I'm here for because when you're in the middle of all those emotions that come with betrayal, a little roadmap goes a long way.
Oh, absolutely. It's
Yeah,
like you're in the dark and suddenly someone hands you a flashlight.
exactly. So, step one, according to Lifelines, is acknowledging the betrayal. And they don't just mean a casual, oh yeah, that happened. They were really big on both people needing to be totally on the same page about what went down.
Which is, often easier said than done
Totally.
because it's painful. The
Yeah.
person who messed up has to fully own it, no excuses. And the person who was betrayed, well, they have to actually sit with that pain, acknowledge it. Not fun, but so essential.
Right, like you can't rebuild anything if you're on shaky ground to begin with.
Exactly.
Speaking of shaky ground, step two is where it gets really interesting.
Hmm.
The sincere apology. And Lifelines made it clear, this isn't just saying sorry and hoping for the best.
Yeah, what I found fascinating was how they actually broke down what a sincere apology looks like in this context. Because it's not about making excuses
Right.
or minimizing the impact of what you did. It's about really owning your part in creating that hurt.
Yeah, they didn't let you off the hook after one conversation either. They talked about how accountability isn't this one-time thing. It's this ongoing process of like showing up differently.
Right, it's like that old saying, actions speak louder than words. If you break someone's favorite vase, you can apologize, sure, but you also need to help clean up those broken pieces, maybe even, help pick out a new vase together. That's what real accountability looks like in action.
That's such a great analogy. It really highlights how it's not about some big grand gesture, but those consistent everyday actions that say, I messed up and I'm serious about making things right. Speaking of actions, I remember this one time, this friend and I, we had this huge falling out because like I totally bailed on this promise I'd made to her. And of course I apologized. But what really helped us get back on track, it wasn't some big thing. It was me just, consistently showing up for her in these small but meaningful ways over time, just proving to her, I guess, that I valued our friendship.
It's those little things, those everyday actions, they speak volumes. And that actually leads us to step 3, which Lifelines calls open and honest communication. Sounds simple, right?
Like just talk to each other.
But they made a really interesting point about how tricky that can be after something like betrayal happens.
Because, yeah, emotions are all over the place, right? You're scared to say the wrong thing or hear the wrong thing.
Exactly. And especially if you're the one who was betrayed, right? It can be so hard to open up when you're terrified of being shut down or judged.
Totally.
Like, Lifelines was really adamant about this, that the person who was hurt, they need to feel safe to express everything they're feeling, even the anger, without judgment.
Oh, 100%. That's so important. Which actually makes me wonder, have you ever been in a situation like that where you were afraid to really speak your mind?
Oh, absolutely. I think we all have at some point, right? It's a pretty universal human experience.
Cool.
And those experiences, they teach us so much, don't they? About ourselves, about how we build trust. It's really fascinating stuff when you think about it. But anyway, moving on. Steps 4 and 5, setting boundaries and being patient. Those two, they really stood out to me because they're so connected, wouldn't you say?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Because boundaries, it's not about punishing the other person or anything like that. It's about creating a space, like a healthy space where the relationship can actually heal.
Right. It's like building a fence, maybe? Not to trap anyone inside, but to define the space, to make it clear what's okay and what's not okay anymore.
Perfect analogy.
And Lifelines actually gave a really great example about this. He said, after infidelity, a boundary might be something like being more transparent about where you are, not to be controlling, but just to rebuild that sense of security.
Right, like I see you, you see me, we're in this together.
Exactly. But that takes time, obviously. You can't rush trust, which is why patience is so crucial. You can't, force healing to happen overnight. And that, I think, is what makes the next step so important.
Step 6, right, the self-healing part.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's so easy to get caught up in fixing the relationship itself.
Oh, totally.
But Lifelines was really smart about this. They made it clear that individual healing, that's crucial too.
Like everyone's got their own work to do alongside the relationship work. It's like double the homework.
Huh, exactly. But for the person who was betrayed, it's about processing that pain, right? Maybe talking to a therapist, finding a support system. And for the person who did the betraying, it's about deep reflection, not just feeling guilty, that's not enough, but really understanding why they did what they did so they don't repeat those patterns.
And that is probably the hardest part for people to really grasp, I think.
The self-healing part.
Yeah. Because it seems so counterintuitive, doesn't it?
Right.
To focus on yourself when what you really want is to fix things with the other person.
Yeah, 100%. It's a really common misconception. But
Right.
what Lifelines argued was you can't truly rebuild trust in someone else if you don't trust yourself first. If you haven't dealt with your own stuff, you're just going to bring all that baggage into the relationship anyway.
It's like, what's that expression? You can't make a good omelet with bad eggs. Something like that. Okay, so we're getting to the final stages of this whole trust rebuilding journey. Rebuilding slowly and forgiveness.
Oh.
Two huge EE topics.
And they're so intertwined, aren't they? Like Lifelines made it very clear. Forgiving someone does not mean forgetting what happened.
And they had this really powerful metaphor about a vase with cracks in it.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
You can repair it, sure, it can still hold water, but those cracks, they're part of its story now.
Such a good way to put it.
It's like you were saying, you can't just like speedrun healing, and that act of forgiving, of choosing to move forward, cracks and all. Man, that takes guts.
It really does. But Lifelines was really good about reminding everyone, like, as hard as it is, and believe me, they don't sugarcoat it, it gets MSEY healing IS possible.
Yeah, that's huge. Because it's easy to feel totally hopeless when you're like knee deep in it. Like, can things ever go back to how they were?
Yeah.
And Lifelines is realistic about that.
Right. They were like, no, it won't be the same, but, and this is what I loved, they said it can be even stronger than before.
Ooh, I like that.
And they use this metaphor, right?
Yeah.
About kintsugi, that Japanese art where they repair broken pottery with gold. So their cracks aren't hidden. They're part of what makes it beautiful.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay, that's really hitting home.
Yeah.
Because it's true. Sometimes the broken pieces put back together, they make something totally new and amazing.
Exactly. And on that note, Lifelines was also really big on this. If you're struggling, it's okay to get help.
Oh, 100% agree.
Therapy, whether it's just you or you go as a couple, it can be a game changer. Sometimes you just need that outside perspective,
Yeah.
to help you navigate those really tough parts.
Yeah. Someone to hand you the flashlight when you're lost in the dark, basically. Well, wow. Okay. We have covered so much ground today, from like the very first step of admitting there's a problem, through those sincere apologies, all that open communication, setting boundaries, learning to be patient again, that inner healing work. Whew. And then finally getting to rebuild and hopefully forgive.
That was quite a deep dive. But what I think is so powerful about these steps, it's how they're not just for like romantic relationships.
I think that's true.
Lifelines focused on that because
Yeah.
it's relatable, right? But those principles, that stuff about trust, friendships need it, families, even in the workplace, it's the same core stuff.
I'm already thinking about how this applies to something going on at work, honestly. Totally different context. But same, like trust issues at the heart of it. So, wow, yeah, lots to think about.
Exactly. Because when you boil it all down, trust is about feeling safe, valued, respected. And those are pretty universal human needs,
Powerful stuff.
Yeah.
So as you go about your day, your week, ask yourself, where do I need to rebuild trust? And how can I use these steps, even in those unexpected places? Maybe that's your homework from this deep dive.
I love it. Until next time, everyone, keep asking those insightful questions. And remember, healing is possible. Rebuilding trust, it's possible, one step at a time.